Thank you. It's a tremendous honor to be here with you tonight, and I'm going to keep it really brief. I know it's late. In fact, everybody stand up for a minute and just kind of relax. I know you've been around here all night. So I'm not going to talk to you too much about philosophy. I'm not going to talk to you too much about bills. I'm going to talk to you about what a difference you can make, and I'm just going to tell you about my race. 4 years ago, I decided to run for Congress. And when I decided to run for Congress, I was a second-term legislator in the Idaho legislature. I had defeated a lot of different bills that members of the establishment had tried to pass in the Idaho legislature. So as you can imagine, I was not the preferred candidate of the legislature, of the establishment. In fact, there was somebody else who was the preferred candidate of the Idaho establishment, and even the preferred candidate of the Washington establishment. How many of you have heard about the Young Guns program? So my opponent was a young gun, and he was the one who Washington, D.C. had decided that they wanted as the congressman from Idaho. And I thought that Idaho should decide who the next congressman from Idaho was going to be. So I got in really late, and I decided to run against this person who had been chosen by Washington, D.C., and I had every member of the Washington establishment giving money to my opponent. In fact, every member of leadership had given money to my opponent. And I decided that it didn't matter, that I could win with a little bit less money, but with a lot of ground troops, with a lot of work. So I went and I talked to my friends in the Liberty Movement in Idaho, and we have a really strong Liberty Movement in Idaho. And I knew that they weren't the majority of the Republican Party, but they could make a difference. In fact, if you look at Idaho, we have about 10% of the Republican Party is comprised of the Liberty Movement. And I thought this was the group that could make the biggest difference. And they knew my record because I had been a state legislator for 4 years. So I got many of the great people in that movement to work on my campaign and to work for me and to work for our election. And they worked like nobody had worked before. In fact, I had one gentleman who is a strong supporter of Ron Paul, a strong supporter of liberty, who was in his 70s. And he could not give me any money. But what he told me is that he could knock on doors. And he knocked on 3,000 doors in his neighborhood. Now, not only that, but when we had parades, he was a military man. He would put on his full uniform, and he would lead the parade holding the American flag in front of our parade volunteers. He was amazing. But the most interesting thing about him was that there came a time that we knew we needed a little bit more money. And we went to a fundraiser, and I asked the crowd to dig in their pockets. Dig in your pockets and give me as much money as you can. If you're planning to give me $10, give me $50. If you're planning to give me $25, give me $100. If you're planning to give me $100, give me $500. I need that money so I can get my message out. And I received a letter from Jack. And in that letter, there was a check for $500. And in that letter, he told me that he didn't have any more money. His wife had just passed away, and he had was his home. So he actually put a second mortgage on his home so he could send me $500. Now, frankly, I returned the money back to him. I didn't want him to take a second mortgage out on his home, and I didn't want him to do that. But he believed so much in liberty. He believed so much in this nation. He believed so much in the movement, and he believed so much in the things that I could do as a member of Congress, that he did not just a little, he did everything he could to make sure that a good person could be elected member of Congress. Now, if you don't think that you can make a difference, think every night about Jack. Because what happened is because of him and people like him, I was outspent 3-1 in my primary, and I won by 9 points. And then the establishment was so upset that they didn't want to help me in the general election. I was going up against an incumbent Democrat, and they decided to tell the media in Idaho that I couldn't win because I was too extreme. And they pulled out of Idaho, and they decided to go somewhere else and put their money somewhere else. So in my general election, I was outspent 5-1. And because of people like Jack, I won my election by 10 points. So if you're ever sitting at home or sitting in a meeting like this or sitting in your office and thinking, what I do does not matter. What I do is not going to make a difference. The fact that I believe in liberty, the fact that I believe in freedom, the fact that I have this great passion for this country and for the future of this country, if you don't think it makes a difference, I plead to you, think about Jack. Think about the difference that he made, because he inspired others to do the same thing for my campaign. And he inspired others to work just as hard as he did. And because of Jack, you have people like myself, you have people like Thomas Massey, you have people like Justin Amash, you have people like Paul Brown, you have people like Mark Sanford, people who were not expected to win and who actually won because we were able to show that what matters is the people and not the money in politics. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you do. And I want to make sure that the next convention and the next time that we're together, bring 1 or 2 of your friends. And if they can't come here, make sure that they, in your neighborhoods, in your states, in your districts, that you do the same things that Jack has done for this country. He served us in the military. He served us as a loyal father, as a loyal husband, as a loyal American. And I am so grateful for people like Jack that believe like you do, that what matters the most is the cost of liberty. God bless you.